was like, man, I dare you. I dare you not to be the Pistons pick. But we are live.
We are alive.
I like it.
Should
I
I do the
like
high
it.
pitch one next time, Kool-Aid?
I
Like
like it, brother.
What's going on, everybody? What up, though? Welcome to Woodward Pistons Table Talk Paris edition, except we're not in Paris. I'm Sean Murphy alongside my guy Brandon, aka Kool-Aid.
Bro, I feel like we should have did something different for the background today.
Man,
Should have been
I know the
like
one time I don't bring
Paris
out
or
the
something.
green screen. We should have both been like at the Eiffel Tower. You know what I mean?
Oh, sitting there with Coach Casey, Killian,
Yeah.
Jay Ivy, and Cade.
Yeah,
Jesus.
us, Kojo, Mason, George Blaha. By the way, I am shocked they got George out to France. Can I just point that out real quick? Like that was a pleasant surprise to see him there. That was really cool.
That was awesome. That was awesome. It is a home game, and it's got to be strategic, man, that it's a home game for the Pistons because that arena sounded electric with Mason calling the game.
Oh,
It
it
really
did.
did.
It
It
did.
sounded
The fact that
awesome.
they had Mason in Paris that went so hard. Unbelievably hard.
That was awesome, man. There were like a few, obviously you want the team to be better, but I believe there were a few cool positive takeaways from this game. It just sucks that some of them were like the intrinsic values, like Mason. Did the pod with CJ Watson. He said the same thing, man. He was like, man, I think the only thing I remember from Detroit was the PA announcer. He was live. I was just like, dang.
Yep.
But hey,
he's the best in the world, man. He truly
he
is.
is.
Shout out Mason. He's the best at his craft, and it's not even close.
Not even close. I mean, he revolutionized things. I've been to some other arenas and you hear guys try to do the same thing, and it's just like, what's going on?
No one can do it like Mason.
What's going on here?
No,
buffoonery, bro.
As much as I've joked around before that I could fill in from my bedroom, I could never. You could put me in person with double the tools, and I couldn't replicate half of what Mason does.
I feel you on that one, man. Those guys in the craft that they have, him, George Blaha, Greg Kelser, it's a gift, man. It's a gift, and to be able to do it yeah, bro. Look, to do it consistently the same way, like, bro, we remarked about this. Like George Blaha, I think one of the most incredible things ever is going this long without calling a windmill, bro.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Oh yeah. 47 years in broadcasting, and he still doesn't know what a windmill dunk is. That's impressive.
I love it, man. I still think he is just messing with all of us, bro. Like, I think he's just like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing this, so quit asking.
Yep. George just secretly like, how can I piss these people off?
And then he gives you the little smile, like,
yeah, he's like, hey there, Special K.
Bro, when Hami did that dunk, I'm telling you, I sat there like, he's going to say it, and all we got was this.
Puts it up for the dynamite dunk.
I love George, man.
Oh, he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT. 100%. But yes, people are mentioning it in the comments. The Paris beatdown. The Pistons did lose in Paris today to the Chicago Bulls. They did play DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and the Chicago Bulls, who have been on a little bit of a winning streak. Zach LaVine did go for 30 points. And the Bulls are 6-2, according to StatMuse, when he scores 30 plus. So pretty hard when Zach LaVine goes off like that to win on every night. But then in addition, you have DeMar DeRozan there as well, who just looked like he was never going to miss when he got in the mid-range. Kool-Aid, I want to get your takeaways from this game. I personally, once the season kind of hit the 30 or the 40 game mark for me at this point, the results are what they are. I think, at this point, being this far in the season, over halfway through, I think right now the number one focus is no longer about what this season's record is, and rather where we end up in the lottery chase because of the player who was courtside today,
Whoo,
which is
electric,
Victor
man.
Wembanyama. Like I don't bring that up as like,
Electric atmosphere.
right, but which, it's one of those things where at this point, I do want the Pistons to be competitive, which I do believe on a night-to-night basis, they still find ways to be competitive. I do think in this one, having Jalen Duren seemingly on a minutes restriction coming back from injury, that definitely hurt them, and his lack of presence, I think was definitely felt. I think, I see Dwayne say there's no reason Duren only getting 18 minutes. I really think that was him being his first game back from ankle soreness, him being on a minutes restriction. And also, it's important to remember that Jalen Duren also got into Paris late as well because of the fact that he forgot his passport.
Hmm.
So, which, by the way, if you needed to be reminded that Jalen Duren's 19 years old, there it is. You know
And
what I
not just
mean?
19, just turned 19 years
Yeah,
old.
just turned 19. It was like, "Oh, yeah, crap, a passport." But, yeah, all that to be said, I like, would I have loved to see this one be a little tighter? Yes. Would I have loved to see a little bit more, out of Killian in his hometown? Yes, but that is more so like a selfish ambition for a player out of more so rooting for a guy than it is out of necessity, because at the end of the day, this is just, despite the spectacle, this is just another one of 82.
Yep, yep. And if there's things to take away from this one of 82, I put this one up on the screen from Dwayne Pierce. Killian was disappointing today, but Chicago aren't chumps. Because that's basically what I wrote in the postgame article today.
Mhm.
Definitely go check it out. What were sports? Um, yeah, it- Chicago, they basically did a masterclass in physicality on both ends of the court. And that affected the guards early in the game. That affected the whole rhythm of the team early in the game. And as they got into about midway through the fourth quarter, it just looked like a football team. They're like, yo, why do you keep running the ball? Why you keep running the ball? Why you keep running the ball? Then the fourth quarter, it's because we're mashing their line to bits, and now
Yeah.
we have the advantage. And that's what I saw happen to the Pistons tonight. They like the Bulls, when you just kind of key in on them, they don't give up on plays. Like I would see Killian Hayes kind of cross, get open, but then bloop, the ball pops out of his hand because the Chicago Bull player ran back in and hustled to get it out of his hands. And not
Yeah.
that the Pistons are not playing tough or playing all out, but there's another gear to go. And that's what Chicago showed them today.
Yeah.
Both of how they hustled. You can see how they led it in steals, they led in blocks, and they led in fouls.
Yep.
And they still controlled the game without having more free throw attempts than the Pistons. So I believe that it was that physicality that Chicago brought, and it was kind of intentional, especially on the guards, man. They got some guys that just like to get up in the in the opposing player's jersey.
Yeah,
When we talk about Killian, they
I
got a
would
perimeter
assume
of guys.
yeah, I would assume in particular is a guy who's super scrappy, causes a
Hmm.
lot of different things to happen. Patrick Williams had a particularly good game as well. Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan combined for 56 points and shot 50% from the field collectively. So
Yeah.
when that happens, you're not winning generally any night. That's just how it goes. But
Yep.
like, yeah, it was a rough performance, but like those things happen. Like, yeah, Killian shot rough. Like he was 2 of 13 from the field. It wasn't from a lack of trying.
Yeah.
I
Six
think
threes though.
yep. Mhm.
You know.
Yep. Yep. I mean, not the greatest there, but I mean, it'd be natural to say that Killian's probably trying to force action, probably trying to make that one especially count, being, this is the game and, back in France for him. But I think, the fact that, we were even expecting a big performance from Killian at all, or the fact that was even a conversation is something that I think is important to remind people when 2 or 3 months ago, Killian was averaging 2.8 points a game.
More rebounds and points per game, bro. That was a
At
horrible point in the season for him.
he was one of the last players in the league at one point to have more assists than points.
That was a rough point. And to see where his averages are now in the season, his averages now are kind of where a lot of us thought he was going to start the season. That means that he's been playing way, 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 way better than a lot of us thought he could be. So 1 game, 2 games, I've said it in the past. It's about how Killian responds to those now, because players are going to go through that, especially with a guy who's just now getting his legs under him. He's not a guy who has just been kind of doing this for 1, 2, 3 years. what we've seen him do over the last two, like maybe 1.5 months. So it's like, yeah, he's gonna get some games like this, the jet lag, all the pressure. These are new situations for him. He was the only
Definitely.
person probably on the court that was playing in that type of a pressure moment. Grandma seeing him first time and all this. And is there excuses? No, it's not. I believe the six threes. Reason why I mentioned that was just 2 of 13 shooting. People would think, dang, he was jacking shots or he was forcing, he was this, he was that. He took maybe 2 or 3 threes at the end of shot clocks. I look like some forces, but when you look at the overall effective field goal percentage or true shooting, when you factor in that half of his shots came from the three, that field goal percentage is not going to be as bad. I thought he played a decent game. He assisted
Mhm.
well, he passed well, but as his shot wasn't falling, just like 3-on-3 Sports Guru said, you could say that about everybody. How many passes did he send to the outside and people were just missing shots? How many passes, bro, were dumped into the paint and the
Yeah.
Pistons just could not find a way to put it into the basket? I
Yeah,
know
the
a
team
good
was
first pass and then nothing else.
Yeah, the team was 8 for 34 from beyond the arc. So,
Yeah.
they couldn't take the lid off. When a guy
Yeah.
when even Bojan's going 3 of 9 from beyond the field or from beyond the arc, that's when something's
Yep.
up. You know what I
They
mean? So,
yeah, they were 40% in their last 10 games from 3 before this game. So that's why it's
yeah.
just like, okay, what are we really gonna do here? There are definitely things to kind of harp at. We don't know what's up with Duren. If this was just a Casey decision to say, hey, Duren's just not playing, just to
I
say it, then it's like, whoa, but we already know that there's health and
I
pass fair issues going on.
And I would wager, yeah, I would put a lot of money on the fact that the reason why Jalen Duren did not play more minutes was because of a minutes restriction. Because we've seen in the past that Dwayne Casey is not afraid to have Jalen Duren out on the court. We've also seen in the past he wants Jalen Duren out on the
Mhm.
court. So I guarantee that if there was a world where he could have Jalen Duren out there for longer, I'm sure he would have wanted to. But I mean, to their credit, I mean, there were points in the game where, like even though this one ended up being like a double digit loss, there were still points of the game where the Pistons came back and fought back to 9 or 8 down. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
that is the thing about this team, that even though they have nights where they just look off offensively. They have nights where it just looks like they just can't get anything going, because that's what happens when you're franchise players on the sidelines.
Yeah.
They
Yep.
The fact that they still are able to be in games on a night to night basis, that's what you're looking for. Troy Weaver did an interview with James Edwards III from The Athletic while in Paris. And one of the things that he touched on there was talking about, the difficulties of a rebuild and the trials of a restoration. And one of the things that he said was a lot of teams don't get out of the rebuilding phase because they don't have the right people in the locker room. And, he's not naming any teams in particular, but I'll do it for him. Teams like Houston, where John Wall came out this week and said how terrible of an experience he had, how he was telling Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green that they can't get away with that they're getting away with in Houston because they wouldn't be in the NBA if they were on any other team. On top of that, Eric Gordon coming out and saying we're not improving. Their coach Scott Silas coming out and getting technical fouls when he's one of the most calm, even demeanor coaches in the entire NBA. Teams like the Charlotte Hornets, where earlier this week on MLK Day, I was watching them play against the Boston Celtics. In the third quarter, there was a part where they said all 5 players were drafted by the Charlotte Hornets. This is the youth movement. And outside of LaMelo Ball Kool-Aid, I was sitting there going, who the are these guys? Like, the reality of it is you want to see like the example of what rebuilds look like that aren't going well. You can see them throughout the league. And the ultimate point is you want to see, like, through those trials and tribulations, when those teams are going through those difficult losses, when the teams are, going down like with starters, like Troy Weaver cited the 6-game West road trip where we were down like 3 starters and we were within single digits in every single game, right? Like those are the signs that you have the right people in the building in the midst of really difficult times.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing I continue to caution people on is this. when they lost Cade Cunningham, when all the injuries happened, and we saw the slow start they got off to, and they didn't have the bench in place, and we see just how important the bench is now. They didn't have some of these pieces to start the season. Readjust the expectations. All
It's
of
been the
us at
number
best.
one bench in the league since Alec Burke's been back.
Yeah, yeah, and that's huge. That would have stabilized some things in the beginning and probably given them a little bit better push to the season. But like you stated, man, and other people stated, when you lose Cade Cunningham, what else is there going? What else can you do? That's why I like what other people are saying. It's time to suck it up and sick for Vic, man. What do you
Right.
think? I saw somebody else talk about
I don't think it's about like, and I don't think it's about tanking, to clarify. I don't think, the rest of this, I don't think they're tanking in the locker room. I don't think they're tanking in the front office. I think this team's just naturally in a position with the way that this season's gone to be in the Wemby race. So I don't know if you have to do anything at the trade deadline to necessarily put yourself in even more of a position to get Wemby. I don't think you make a decision to get better draft positioning. I think rather you make a decision for what's best for the long term, health of your basketball team. So, I personally don't like to play the basketball gods like that either. I believe in basketball karma and goodwill. I think, I think tanking's proven to not really play well with the basketball gods. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm a weirdo when it comes to that, by the way, Kool-Aid. I'm not sure where you are with basketball spirituality or anything like that. The basketball gods are definitely a thing to me.
I hear you on that one, man. It's with Troy, man. It's something that I don't know, man. He's consistently shown that he doesn't have to go out and purposely tank to get what he wants.
Which, by
You
the
know what I'm
way,
saying?
can we point out for the second or third year in a row, Detroit has not one but two of the most coveted pieces at the trade deadline in the entire NBA, with reportedly Alec Burks getting a lot of interest on top of Bojan.
Yep.
So, I mean, and Nerlens Noel in there too. So, like, the fact that, Troy Weaver took on, all three of these pieces in the off season, where the Knicks quite literally dumped two of those players onto us. And now Troy Weaver might go get value for all three of them. Or if not, they might be on the team next year and actually have significant value.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's how he played it last year. We said with Jeremy Grant trade, this was a situation to where if he's on the squad, he was going to be of value. I know that a lot of people were harping about the offense and him being a ball stopper and whatnot. I really believe that was more about the nature of the team around him and the responsibility that they were placing on him, because there were a lot of games where he was the only reason why they had some offense down the stretch, especially in some of the games that Cade missed. But obviously we lose him. We see just how big a miss it is, and just how much his offense has blossomed when you put other people around him. And on this squad, it's kind of the same. We've seen as more offensive pieces have come in, even guys like Sadiq Bey, his offense is starting to settle, no matter if he's playing with Alec Burks or if he's playing with Bojan Bogdanovic. Well, this team ultimately, in my opinion, aside from playing physical and kind of playing all the way through the whistle, I want to see this team kind of take a step forward as it relates to I don't know, man, just the defense. It seems like there's something off as it relates to knowing where to be, or knowing like when to respond or when to react. And sometimes you see them kind of just putting their hands up like they just don't know exactly what happened. And I know
Yeah,
Stu
it
has
feels like
talked
it's a
about
lot
this
of like
a couple times.
miscommunication. Feels like it's a lot of like a lot of lack of communicating on switches and on coverage, like especially like when because they do have a defense that is so predicated on switching and knowing where your man is, knowing who you're covering at any given time. And we are switching as much as you are, even though 24 seconds isn't a long time. It is a long time to forget who exactly you're supposed to be guarding. And if you forget for even a split second, it's been proven time and time again that you will pay for it. And so I think, like
Mhm.
I see, like guys like Isaiah Livers, his presence, I think, has been super crucial. How good
Yep.
he is on the defensive end, like not even just as
So versatile, man.
not even just as an individual defender, by the way, like just his communication on the defensive end is top
We
tier as
need
well. Like
more of that.
that was like one of the things that you could hear coming through the TV. Like that's the thing that, like, for me, I don't notice a whole lot of guys communicating on the defensive end. And I think when you see like what team defense is like really about, unity, cohesion, and communication is really where that starts. So, I don't know if they just need to get back in the lab and work on like some basics and fundamentals and make sure they're just talking or what. But yeah, like I definitely think that's just a big piece of it. They just got to talk.
Yeah, no, communication is always going to be key to every institution, organization, or relationship. And Stu, he continues to say that they know what to do. They have to just execute. And in the last press conference, I got to ask Casey about that, and he kind of just abruptly was like, "No, no, no. They know what to do. They know what to do. We go over this all the time. They just have to get it right." So what it just seems like is that maybe this is the first year they've been able to really go in and try and institute their defense. They also have 6, 7 new players or they brought in a lot of new players.
Yeah.
Trying to integrate into a regular rotation. What 4 or 5 of those guys on a regular
Which
nightly basis?
Which
You know what I
Cade
mean?
was gonna have a big part in that as well too. I mean, he's
Yeah,
6'6",
he's no
six
slouch
seven.
on defense.
Yeah. 6'6", 6'7" point forward who can switch on multiple positions. He was definitely gonna have a big part on defense.
Yep, yep. And so now, yeah, when you listen to what Casey is saying and you're seeing his frustrations, and then you see Stu come into the table, bang and say, "Dang, man, that's on us. That's on the players. That's not on the coaches." You start to really understand that there's a learning curve going on. But to what you're talking about, and other people have talked about before, and shout out to Terry Foster. The Pistons, they need an enforcer. They need somebody who's going to be the reason why nobody else can slack off, why nobody is communicating, because you can't tell me that they're being coached to not communicate. I
And
won't believe that. There's not any level of basketball where people will tell you, will let that fly.
I
You know what I mean?
and I personally believe they already have that enforcer on the roster. Like, I personally believe Isaiah Stewart can be that, and I think his
Stu.
personality and everything, his game, like, I think that's just a big part of what he
Yeah.
can be for this team going forward. I think that's just the next step in his development because we've seen him become a better communicator and a better leader this season. We've seen him become a better player. We've seen those moments, but now it's just like those like that final thing where like he just had like it's just that final he has to fully take that commitment to do that on an 82 game basis because if he does, I think that's part of what can take this team to the next level. Like I was even listening to like the Draymond Green show and he was blaming like a big part of the Warriors inconsistency this season on him. And if you actually look at when the Warriors started improving, when the Warriors have been better this season, it wasn't when Steph was in the lineup because the Warriors actually went on a winning streak when Steph went out due to injury. It was when Draymond stepped up. It was when Draymond started playing well. And I feel like Isaiah Stewart can have a very like can play a very Draymond-esque role for this team. I know we talk a lot about what about him like on the court mimicking what Al Horford brings. But I feel like from a psyche standpoint, I feel like he can be very similar to what Draymond Green brings to Golden State.
Yep, yep. And like I said, in some regards, he's already doing that, but like you said, man, the next phase of his
It's
development
doing
is
it
going to
all
be
4
doing it on the
quarters.
court.
Yeah.
He's doing it on the court because I see, like I said, in the press conferences, I hear him say it, but when we look at some of these old Pistons teams, you can audibly hear these guys talking. You could hear Sheed talking. You could hear Ben in his country accent talking, bro. You could hear these guys. So I could hear Rip. You could hear these dudes out there on the court playing defense and talking to each other. I could hear it. Hey, Chauncey, hey, Rip, hey, Rip, hey, Rip, we sending them your way. Like, I remember that type of stuff,
Even
but
when
I
the
don't really
Knicks
hear that
are
stuff
in
anymore.
town, I can hear Tibbs in my living room every single time. Like Tibbs
Bro,
was in town the other night, and I'm just sitting there, like just eating my food, minding my business. You just hear
man, you hear him in a
girl,
loud arena.
girl. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, Tibbs, how do you not lose your voice? Literally, like the entire possession, he's like, go. I'm like, God, Tibbs.
It's you like I want to see that, man. Like if there's 3 things to fix with this defense: communication, physicality, and honestly, just a different level of tenacity. Just
Holy
as you play through a play, like don't just oh my gosh, he got around me, and I'm just gonna look at him walk down the layup. Like, bro, go after him, go like hit him, do something. Hey, we're not advocating for people to be hurt here now, but Detroit style of
I
physicality,
mean, but
man.
Detroit, we'll advocate for muscle in Detroit. We'll advocate for that every
I
day.
like that. I like that. I like that, man. I like Tayshaun. You like that, bro? Tayshaun likes that.
Well, it's like I was even talking to DMAC earlier. Like I had DMAC on one of my pods. It's actually coming out tomorrow. Shameless plug. And one of the things I asked him about was the fact that DMAC, you're one of the nicest guys I've ever met, but you're known for kicking the shit out of people, like for the lack of better terms, like what is that? And yeah, I have
Shout out
mine.
D-Mac. I
Mine's right
see it.
above my head. Yes, sir.
I see it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Shout out to our guy. But anyway, like DMAC responded, he said he would never, like, if it was against him, he would never retaliate. But it was always when it was against his teammates. It was always when someone did something against one of his own. And I think that's the big thing, is that we've seen the glimpses before of this team showing that fight, in off the court incidents, or in tussles and brawls, during games. And I think those are great signs and great moments that show that you have character and that you have toughness. But I think it's about how do you show that in game instead? How do you show that through
Right.
the flow of a 48-minute basketball game? And I think, to your point, that's where, like you have to figure out that line of being physical on the defensive end and not allowing anything, but at the same time being cerebral, being smart, not fouling,
Yeah.
not biting on pump fakes, not because if you
Yeah.
allow, but if you allow guys, because if you allow guys like DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine to go to the line even a little bit, they'll make you pay.
Yep. Yep. And that, I want them to stop the defense, man. Like the whole this stuff. Like, get out of here. You're not trying to stop cars from going into a parking
Well,
garage, just
well,
like
I
you're trying to
just
stop a guy from dunking on your head.
you know what I think it is? I think we have guys on this team, like, and I'm not saying like this is the thing. I'm just saying like this. I think this is a part of it. I think we have guys in this team that are so good on the offensive end, and don't get me wrong, they're great on the offensive end. It
Offense is
feels to
way up
me
this
like
year.
on this team, there's a sense that if they let something up on one end, they feel like they can go back down on the other end and recover it. Which it's great if you feel confident in yourself on that end. But the problem is, if you keep slipping into that habit where you talk about, like Dwayne Casey talks about, like bad habits, if you keep slipping into this habit of playing in a shootout each and every game, the reality of it is we've seen with this roster 9 times out of 10, if they're playing a shootout, they're not going to win because the other teams in this league have their franchise players available. And a lot of their franchise players are perennial all-stars or multi-time. And for Chicago, in their case, they have 3 guys who are multi-time all-stars, right? So
And they
like,
look so savvy tonight. I mean,
yep,
during the game, they
yep.
look so savvy. It looks so controlled, and that's what I meant. Like, this game, to me, this game, the Knicks games, what other games? There's a couple other games that they're almost like master classes. Where I hope the Pistons are taking the film and they're saying, you know what, look at how they're playing, because some of these other teams are not even like super talented over the Pistons, but their guys just play really, really hard, like
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
time.
that's the thing. Like, to your point, you brought up how the Bulls just have these guys, like specifically like Ayo Dosunmu. Alex Caruso is one of the most coveted players in the entire league at
There
the
you go.
deadline. And I
There
know
you
he
go.
looks like an absolute dork, but the reason why he is because
Man,
he's
I
willing to
covet
do
him,
quite
man.
literally anything that it takes to win. He's a
I
really good shooter. He's a damn scrappy defender. Like, he does everything that you need your team to do. Like, that's, you know what I mean? Like to your
Yep,
point, those are the guys that, like, I think Detroit needs more of. I think what we've seen from Hamidou Diallo of
he's
late,
one. Mhm.
I think Hamidou Diallo is making more of a case than ever for an extension in Detroit because that's the type of tenacity and intensity that we need on the defensive end, especially off our bench. And if we can get more guys like that, but with more length and with more versatility, I think
Mhm.
we're going to be really dangerous really soon. And there's guys like that available in free agency. There's guys like that available in the draft. Like, it's not like these guys like aren't out there, you know?
Yep. And the best thing about having your young guys now is the fact that you can afford to not pay that Detroit tax, because you know you have your Cade Cunningham on a rookie deal, and that second deal is still going to be very, very affordable compared to the value that he's going to be able to give you. So
Yeah.
you can go out there and afford to overpay to make sure you can get a couple defensive guys. Make
You
sure you
can
can get
go
a
to
couple guys
you
that
can
can
go
come in here
this
and teach.
Yeah, you can go this summer and you can make Boston sweat and go, "Hey,
Ooh,
Grant Williams,
yeah.
want to come to Detroit?" You know what I mean? Like, that's the exact type of piece that would be perfect. for this team. Like just guys
Yeah.
that are scrappy, that play both ends of the ball, that just fill their role and do what they need to do. Like I think like it's to me, it's so clear that this team is really close. They're just a few pieces away from being a playoff team, from being a team that can be really competitive. And I think a big part of it's just, like I like with the fact that, like for one, that we saw Cade back with the team, so soon. That's huge. But also the fact that we saw, tape of him like just shooting around as well, like during practice. Like,
Yeah.
even though, like, that's by no means anywhere close to, playing basketball again. From everything we've heard, Cade should be ready to go a couple weeks after the offseason begins and to get ready to put in work. Not rehab work, by the way, work, like to improve his game. So the fact that, Cade's going to be able to spend a summer in the lab, not on his health, but rather on his craft. And the fact that, we're going to have that top 5 pick, the flexibility, everything that comes with that. Like, I mean, I'm just telling you, man, like the moments like these are like, like, hey, let's enjoy where we're at now. Appreciate, like
Mhm.
to me, this is like a fun checkpoint in the rebuild to recognize how far guys like Killian Hayes have come, how far guys like Isaiah Stewart have come. But at the same time, how exciting it is that we realize how much potential there already is in house, but also how much potential that there is in the horizon because of the assets and the things that are available to us too. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It echoes some of the sentiments of a article and a in the pod that I did. I think Donovan Strong mentioned it earlier, where I went through and wanted to just compare the Philadelphia 76ers process to the Detroit Pistons restoration. And honestly, like, man, there are so many players that Troy Weaver's picked right now that would absolutely fall on the top 6 pick list or top 7 picks list of the Philadelphia 76ers process. And theirs took so much longer, man. It's like
Yeah.
I don't think people understand this is literally like year two of an actual rebuild. And
Yeah.
we already have people and players in place that we know are going to be stars for a long time. It's like talking with yeah. Oh, what's up, bro?
Well, really quickly, not even
Mhm.
just the process, Kool-Aid. You can even compare it to teams across the league right now. Teams
Yep.
like teams like Houston in Orlando that started after Detroit did in their rebuild process. And let's remember how Orlando and Houston started their rebuilds.
Yeah.
Houston traded James Harden and got a metric ton of assets in return. Orlando traded Nikola Vucevic and got a couple first round picks, got
Yep.
Wendell Carter Jr. They got Markelle Fultz in a trade. Like these teams had head starts. Kool-Aid, what did Detroit start with? What did Troy Weaver start with? What was in the cupboards for him?
Not a lot. Not a lot at all. That 7th pick for Killian Hayes. Oh, what did he start with? A draft pick that lost its value. We dropped what 2 or 3 draft slots. We were supposed
Mhm,
to have a top 4 pick and then fell out of that
mhm.
to number 7.
In,
And
in in
yeah,
the hardest
that's what it
draft to
started with.
scout in the history of the league because there wasn't a combine, you couldn't meet with people in person.
Oh yeah, he walked away with Killian Hayes, Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart in that draft. I don't know how many
Three
assets he
NBA
had.
level players in one night.
3 first round picks. What 2 first team all rookie,
Yep,
I believe. Yeah,
yep,
I believe so.
yeah.
And then the next year,
If not,
Cade,
if
then the
not,
year
one
after
of them
that.
was if not first team, it was second team for one of them. Yeah.
Yep. And then somebody tells me, "Oh, it's no brainer to pick Jaden Ivey." Bro, okay. Let's call that a no-brainer. Jalen Duren. You can't call that even a no-brainer. Why? Because he had to finagle that one.
Right. Well, and
You
even then the
just
year before, Isaiah Livers, if you really look at it, the way the organization talks about him, the way the organization treats it, for all intents and purposes, Detroit got two first round picks in that draft as well.
Yep. Yeah, and we're seeing it with Isaiah Livers. We're definitely seeing it with him, but I don't know, man. I think that Killian Hayes is just a blip. I see 3-3 down here. Is it an embarrassment? They're gonna bounce back, whatever. Slump is so weird. It's like with this team, I don't know if slump is about wins or losses. Slump is really about how they're playing. And it's something that you alluded to in the beginning of this pod, Sean. It's about the individual developments for this team at this point in time. Without Cade, and we're gonna keep saying it, man, the straw that stirs the drink. This season became one of development, and not just without Cade. It's when you lose multiple big men and then you're
Well,
off
it's
to
when
one of your worst
everything's in
starts.
and out of the lineup at all times. I mean, Troy Weaver even brought up in the interview with James, he's like, how many different starting lineups his coach had this season? I mean, it's just insane. Just like the cohesion hasn't been there. I mean, this is even after last, and this is like, this season's felt pretty rocky in comparison to even last year when COVID was the thing and when half the roster, was out due to COVID. Like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like this has been a turbulent season for a roster that last year technically fielded the most players in its history in the history of its franchise.
And last year they had Cade for
Right.
most of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this year they're not going to. He was one of the league's most clutch players as a rookie. I'm gonna say that one more time. He was one of the league's most clutch players as a rookie. And then we're wondering why we can't win games down the stretch. Like
Well,
that's gonna play a huge factor.
you know what just terrifies me? What should terrify the rest of the league, Kool-Aid? Something that's getting lost in all of this. Cade
Let's
did
get
an
Athletic.
interview with The Athletic
Yeah.
earlier this week as well, talking a little bit about his injury and his surgery and where he's at. And even Ashton tweeted about this earlier this week as well. Cade's been dealing with this shin injury since high school.
Mhm.
So he's been feeling some form of discomfort since high school. Kool-Aid, that means that Cade Cunningham went out there and made himself the consensus number 1 overall pick and arguably should have won Rookie of the Year, all while playing hurt. Can you imagine what we're going to be getting with a healthy, comfortable Cade Cunningham? I would wager that those shots that were looking short and
Yeah.
just off for some reason, I'm going to wager that more of those shots are going to go in. I'm going to wager that Cade's going to have more of that burst and that quickness and more trust in his leg to blow by guys and actually play with more intensity on a night-to-night basis. I mean, a healthy Cade Cunningham should scare the living out of the rest of the league.
Yeah. Yeah, I look forward to Cade Cunningham next season because I thought he was going to be a star. I believed he could average a 25 and 5 this season minimum.
He was on
He
that
ended it.
way.
He ended it with 19.9, 6 and 6. That's what he did. And he had a crazy stretch, like 4 or 5 game stretch right before he got. I think it was 4 or 5, and then he had another 4 or 5 game stretch right before he was out. He averaged, man, about 28 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists during that stretch. And it was like he was doing everything for the team during that time. Obviously, you want to see the wins there, but I don't know what you expect with what the team was looking like during that time. But he looked like a star to me.
Yeah.
He put up the stats. Obviously, you want to see him shoot better, but that leg was bothering him. It's different shooting mid-range off one leg versus trying to shoot a 3 off one leg. It's different.
At Cade's apex this season, the 4-game stretch against Atlanta, Golden State, and Milwaukee.
Yep, 2 Atlanta games.
Yep, 2 Atlanta games, 1 at home against Golden State, 1 at Milwaukee. Cade averaged 27.8 points, 7.5 assists, 8.3 rebounds, 49% from the field, 28% from 3. Imagine when that 3-point percentage just goes up even to 35%. That's a 32, 33 a point per game season. Like this guy was showing that he was a star right now. So like when he's healthy and the fact that again, he's not rehabbing this summer, guys. He's not rehabbing. He is working this summer. That's huge.
Healthy for the first time in a long time. And that's going to be great for him. And I had the awesome privilege of being able to interview CJ Watson, formerly of the Bulls, Pacers, and Magic and some other squads, and asked him about Cade Cunningham. His comparison, his NBA comp for Cade Cunningham was, he said he's a new era Brandon Roy.
I love that comp.
And he does believe he's going to be a superstar. And he does believe that, and he did say other people in the league believe Cade Cunningham is going to be a star. And that's awesome to hear because that's what we hear every time. Like I still remember the DeMar DeRozan interview where he was just kind of out of it. And then someone said, "What do you think about Cade Cunningham?" And he said, "Look." He said, "Who?"
Oh yeah, you mean
They were like,
oh yeah, that kid's the truth.
Cade Cunningham. Oh yeah, I love him. I love it. I love his game. That kid is the truth. He's this, he's that. And everybody they ask, even LeBron James, all these guys like, oh no, he's next level. Chris Paul, all these guys, man, all these guys. And so it's like with Cade Cunningham, I think that just like we said, are people underestimating the loss of Jeremy Grant? Year 2 Cade Cunningham, people underestimated the loss of him. I listen, that Apex, that 4-game stretch that you read, Sean, imagine if he could have just got to like the second half of the season. Remember last year? Remember people say, I don't think he can average that again. Well, that's what he was doing the second half of last season, bro, averaging between like 24 and 27 points a game
Yeah.
in
And
some of these bigger games.
and
It,
it's
it was
crazy.
just, he was a problem, bro. Oh, here we go. I was just about to say this.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. When
Cade's
he
going to be a
gets
problem when he gets healthy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. Like when he is fully healthy, like the fact that again, he's gonna have this summer to really get in the lab, get to work, and be ready by the time the season comes around. I mean, I think it can be very similar to like what Zion did for the Pelicans this year, where he just hit the ground running and just looked like a star from day one. I think
Yeah.
Cade could do the exact same type of thing. And if especially if you give him a top level prospect like one of the Thompson twins, like Brandon Miller from Alabama, which by the way, he's becoming a favorite in the From Half Court group chat. Like he's so good. But I mean, obviously Wemby, what he would do too. I mean, that's the scary thing is just the tools that Cade's gonna have at his disposal. Because the best thing about Cade is how he elevates the players around him. Imagine how he can elevate a top overall prospect in a generational draft class.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome thing. And I want to be able to highlight Jaden Ivey. I thought he started a little slow today. There were some comments all over social media that kind of went out early, and it was just like, guys, just kind of settle down, just kind of wait a little bit. And I thought he acquitted himself nicely as the game went on. The commentators for the Bulls, they continued to kind of just say great things about Jaden Ivey, especially Jalen Duren. I mean, he had a great game. It's not much to say about Jalen Duren. He did what he was supposed to do, but Jaden Ivey, it was a little bit like, all right, where's his start? How's he going to look overseas? But as he settled in, I forgot he was a rookie, man. I remember we sat here on these table talks in the summer and we were talking about Jaden Ivey and was like, listen, his speed is a type of speed where he will run by people, even as a rookie. It like the NBA spacing was always going to be a trampoline for him. It's just about making sure he doesn't get himself in trouble because defenses are now starting a game plan to take that away from him. So what I see him doing a little bit more of now is getting into the middle, getting into that mid range, doing some hezzies when he's getting into the mid range, and it's opening up the middle for him to be able to get in and have some electric dunks. And now he's getting one or two of those dunks a game where he's just straight by the defender and dunking the ball.
He's so clever too, like as a
Yeah.
playmaker. There was a moment at the end of the first quarter where Jaden Ivey had the ball in his hands. It was like the final like 10 seconds, and Special K was like, "Oh, I know what Jaden Ivey's looking to do with this." And even the Bulls were all embracing for Ivy to drive it to the basket. And Ivy went and had his eyes and his body and everything to appear that he was getting ready to drive. And then at the last second, just kicks it over the top to Jalen Duren for an easy dunk. That was just such a clever pass. And even Special K is like, he even faked me out. Like that, like the fact that, like he was faking out the broadcast. Like that's the thing about Duren that's about Ivy that's so impressive is like how how naturally gifted of a playmaker he is. I think at times he can tighten his pass up a little bit. I think there's times where he even does things that catches him off guard sometimes when he's passing the ball. Like he'll have an idea in his head of where a guy's at, and sometimes that idea is
Yeah.
not always correct. That's a thing that young players do. I mean, that's just a natural mistake. I think again for him, I think I've seen everything I've needed to see on the offensive end that this guy has the intangibles to be a star. I mean, I like the fact that his numbers pretty much match up, at this point with Russell Westbrook in his rookie year. Like I feel like those comparisons make a lot of sense to me. I think what it's going to come down to for him is just, the same thing that we've been saying about with a lot of these guys, which is the defensive end. I know that's something we've talked a little bit before about, like his defensive efforts being particularly concerning, or there's been points where he's been had to be pulled out of games because of his defense. I like we know that he has the intangibles to be great on that end. It's just about the continued growth and development. And I have no doubt that he can. I have no doubt that he will. It's just comes down to, those are the growth elements, I think. But to your point, like the fact that he's doing as well as he is right now, the fact that he's averaging, like 15, 5 and 5, like in his rookie year. Yeah, I mean, without Cade Cunningham in the lineup, I mean, that's just that's all you need to see in the world right there. He's going to be damn good.
Yep, and that's the crazy thing is like, these are numbers that we sat around on these table talks and we said, can he get here? Well, yeah, we
Yep.
think he has the skill sets and the tools to get here. It's like from an individual standpoint, a lot of the things that we wanted to see, they're kind of happening. But from a team standpoint and from a chemistry standpoint, they're just not. And with any new team, like the thing that I remember hearing often whenever a new player came into a team, just one new player back in the day, they said, oh, it's going to take them half a season to integrate them. It's going to take them half a season to get chemistry. Well, with a bad team integrating 5 or 6 new players plus starting or playing 2 younger players, I don't know how long it's going to take. Now, can we criticize how they look on a night-to-night basis? Definitely can. Jalen Duren has been leaving little to no room for criticism unless he's forgetting his passport. But I don't know, bro. Like Killian, I got to see somebody on Twitter chat saying he was atrocious. It's like, yeah, he had a bad game tonight. I mean, what are we really gonna do? Because over the last couple months, I saw somebody else say, "Oh, y'all let that last 6 weeks fool y'all."
Well,
Off
it's
of
like,
one bad game, bro.
well, also it's like I get this is like a special game that we're in Paris, but like again, this is just a regular season game, right? Like even though like this is
Yeah.
like a special spectacle, even though we're being ambassadors of the game, like people are
No,
coming
this is
out
the
to see
Paris
us.
championship, bro. What do you
Yeah,
mean? Killian let down. He let down his whole team in the
it's
biggest
the
game of his
Paris
career, bro.
Cup.
He
Yeah.
did. The Paris Cup.
Yeah, it's just like it's like the reality is this team goes back on Monday and plays a game at home against Milwaukee that's just as important as this one. You know what I mean? Like that's
Whew.
that's the reality of it. So like
Are fans gonna be happy after Monday?
I mean, I don't. I listen, man. I'm convinced at this point that nothing can make them happy, but that's okay. But like the ultimate point is, like I think, like there. It's not like there aren't things to look forward to, or it's not like there aren't things to where this team, can make changes like or can't make changes like very soon. Like there's the trade deadline in just 2.5 weeks. There's the draft lottery in about in about 3.5 months. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of
Mhm.
different things on the horizon for this franchise very soon. And I saw someone make the point earlier where it's like well, like you can't keep all these guys. Like who are you gonna pay? Well, to answer your question, first of all, not all of these guys are gonna be getting super max contracts. It's not like Isaiah Stewart's gonna be a $60 million a year player. But even then, NBA money and the media rights deal will be coming into effect in the next few
Plus
years.
it's
And
going up a
even
lot.
then, yeah, and the salary cap's going to go up by a ton. And even then, players generally will take less if they're at a place they want to be. So that's just how this league works.
What? Someone saying, go look at his stats. Tell me how he's bounced back. He's barely a bench player in the NBA. Goodness gracious, man.
Yeah,
I guess
no,
the
y'all
haters are
overhyped
out.
Hayes and said he was going to be a superstar in Paris, and he was not.
Man, it's all about the scoring. In a year where the Pistons offense has actually trended upward, like they are a tremendously better offensive team this year than they were last year. The offensive rating, just the offensive numbers overall. The 3-point shooting after they kind of started historically, just obviously Killian bad and the rest of the team, they weren't shooting it well at all. What they've been over the last 2 months, 3 months. I mean, the season hasn't been going on that long. That's been like the majority of the season so far, and they've
Mhm.
shown that. And is it just guys all of a sudden hitting? No, it's been pretty much what we thought. Like Kevin Knox has come in and hit some threes. Alec Burks came in, hit threes. You know what I'm saying? Sadiq Bey is somebody who always starts slow, and we said he's going to start to heat up just before the midway part of the season. Then all of a sudden you look at his last 10, 15 games and things of that nature. These guys are starting to do what we kind of thought they would do overall, but it takes some time. It really does. And when you mix in a lot of those other injuries and a lot of other things that they've faced, like I said, I don't know, man. This is a season that's going to continue to, I think, be a broken record. It's going to be a season that I think fans ultimately going to realize that they're just more mad and upset with what I believe. I don't remember who said it earlier, if it was Donovan Strong or somebody else. I know that they're rebuilding, but it's just frustrating to watch. Like, yeah, I don't want to see my squad get punched. Like if I had a homie that was a boxer, or like a MMA fight or something, I still wouldn't want to see him. Even if he was winning, I wouldn't want to see him
Right.
get his face bashed in.
I
You
mean,
know what
yeah,
I'm
it's
saying?
not it's not fun to see your team, more than likely end up with 50 plus losses again. You know what I mean? And I get that because it does suck. Like there's no silver lining to it. Like sometimes, yeah, like your team's bad right now, but at the same time, I think people look at the fact that this has been going on for so long, and I think like part of the fatigue is from past regimes and past ways that things have been done. And the reality of it is all you have to do is, remember that this isn't something that started in, 2017 or 2015. This is something that started in October of 2020. You know what I mean? Like this is a process that, if you really, and like we've talked about before, it really didn't start until Cade Cunningham came in the building. You could argue this process didn't truly begin until June of 2021. And so
Yeah,
when you
because you
look
remember
at
the team with Killian, right? That was a team where you got Blake Griffin, singing the praises of Sadiq Bey. That was the year that they won. They made the playoffs and got swept. Then they decided, all right, now we have to tear this thing down to the studs. That's when the rebuild, like you said, when they got Cade, that's when the whole ticker started to begin
right.
on the whole rebuild.
Right, and it's like and I understand because I was at one point the fan that was frustrated with the organization. I was at one point the person that was saying, "What are we doing here? We gotta blow it up. This isn't working. Like this all this crap has to stop." And
Mhm.
it wasn't until the organization looked itself in the mirror and said, "Okay, we're gonna restore the Detroit Pistons and work towards building that through the draft," in which, by the way, they have shown every single step of the way with every transaction that they've made that they are doing just that. I mean, I get it. Like someone said, rebuild since 2004. I get it can feel like that, but
Shout out Patty Grimes.
but it wasn't until the adults came in the building that saw the vision and understood where this needed to go that this team started going in a different direction. And to their credit, they have been. And now that guy's on an extension. And now that guy's going to have $60 million of cap space because that's what he's been setting himself up for ever since he got here. And now he's going to have himself a top lottery pick in a generational draft class. And now he's going to have Cade Cunningham coming back being healthy for the first time since potentially 2016. Like those are the types of things that we're going to be dealing with here. Like it's not far off, people. You know what I mean? Like that's what I keep trying to reiterate.
Yeah. Yeah. And CJ Watson, he said that earlier as well. And I like to be able to reference that conversation because I was able to ask him a lot of questions and try and get an NBA player's perspective on it. You know what I'm saying? And he believes that the Pistons are literally like just 2 years away from being playoff contenders, from really not are they going to make the playoffs, but yes, they're going to make one of those top 6 positions, not just playing. He believes that with just the right draft pick and one good free agent signing with all of that money they got, I'm sure he can find one. He believes that the Pistons are going to be serious players. He's saying you're going to basically be adding a Cade Cunningham, a top draft pick, and whoever you sign with all that money, this squad is going to get infinitely better next year. They just are. They got more talented this year, though they got worse as a team.
Yep.
And that's okay. That is okay. What you have to be looking at right now is exactly the things that we've continued to try and promulgate. Did we underestimate the loss of Jeremy Grant? I know that you and I and some of us who covered this, we said no, it's something that needs to be talked about. But did we understand why we had to take this step back? I'll take that step back every single time Jalen Duren walks through that door. But it's
Did we
going to
also
start with growing pains.
did we also underestimate the fact that the rest of the league got better too?
Oh, yeah, it did. The whole East got just tough. So the league got better. The East just decided to go use steroids. And
Yeah,
it's just,
Jalen Brunson's been averaging about 35 points a game the last week and a half. So that's been really fun to watch as the guy who was told all summer how bad Jalen Brunson was. It's been really fun to watch for me. I've been really
that's been,
enjoying a Kool-Aid. It's just, to all the people that told me this summer, just take these home to mom and let them grow in the garden. You know what I'm saying, Kool-Aid?
yep. Yeah. And honestly, Jalen Brunson's been somebody who's impressed me because obviously he's a good player, but the level of physicality that he brings as a guard,
Yeah.
as just a punishing, just bowling ball, man.
He's just a leader
It's an
too.
amazing thing.
He's
It's an
just a
amazing
leader
thing.
too. He brings that intensity, and on a night-to-night basis, like they're one of the only teams in the league that are both top 10 in offense and top 10 in defense. And part of that's because of what Brunson's bringing to that roster. Absolutely huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking through some of these comments here, man. This one's funny to me. I like RB. I like RB, but this one's kind of funny to me.
I mean, you take the best player regardless of who's available. Like
Yeah,
that's
that's what they did. They drafted Killian. They still drafted Cade, and Cade's a guard. They still drafted Ivy. They had Isaiah. They had just signed Marvin
and
Bagley, and then they
and
drafted Duren.
I'll tell you this right now. If they got the number 2 overall pick, they'd still draft Scoot Henderson.
Yep. Yeah, they would. And they would sit here and say, okay, so now let's figure this out now after. And you know what? We would all be here like, yes, yes.
Yep,
We gonna do
you
scoff at
might
that?
be like, all those guards, really? No, you take the best player, you figure it out later. That's just how
Listen,
this
if
league is.
Kojo, yeah, bro, because if Kojo and Magruder are getting minutes right now, hey, there's room for Scoot. There's room for another guard.
Right.
There
Obvious,
definitely is.
like we all know the best case scenario is a Wemby, which that's the obvious. You know what I mean? But like that doesn't mean like whether they get one of the Thompson twins, Brandon Miller, whether they get Nick Scott, whether they get Victor Wembanyama, like there is just a plethora
Yeah.
of talent. And like if we do get Scoot, like we could be making a trade, but that's the beauty of it. There's the flexibility, there's the options.
Yeah, yeah, and honestly, this whole trade alert thing, yeah. If we get Scoot, it's gonna be next season. Sean is gonna be one of the most interesting and I think exciting Piston seasons we've had in a long time, because it's not about false hope, it's not about false vibrato. It's about the talent that's here in their squad right now and watching them develop. But it's also about the fact that Troy Weaver can go out there next year and really sell free agents on what we have here. If you hear players in the league right now talking about how good Cade Cunningham is, if you hear players right now, like I talked to CJ Watson earlier, he was like, bro, players never got to Detroit. With the connotation you hear and not being able to be in the city and see it yourself and going to Auburn Hills, we just didn't want to. He said players didn't want to play there. He said even when they were good, players around the league wasn't like, yeah, I want to go there. I don't even remember Rasheed Wallace being gung ho at first with the trade.
Right.
It was something that had to kind of be worked in. And then when that culture gets in you, it's different, and it's funny because CJ is like, yo, I really actually want to come there. He said he could see things on the screen, on TV and on games and such. And he's like, that's way different than his experience driving out to the Palace. You know what I'm saying? And so being able to sell this type of stuff to free agents, being able to sell the city, the revival, the new arena, the fact that the fans, man, shout out to the fans, are still going out to LCA. They are top 11. They were top 10. They're top 11. Their numbers didn't drop. It's just teams ahead below them went up. And who's behind them? Teams like the Milwaukee Bucks, Phoenix Suns, LA Lakers. Like these are the teams that are behind LCA as it relates to Pistons attendance. And it's not just like corporate tickets. I'm there, man. Check the pictures. It's a fun night every single night. And you're able to sell this with a young nucleus, man, of whoever you draft, Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren. That's a solid nucleus, along with if you keep these guys like Isaiah Stewart, Sadiq Bey, Killian Hayes. This is something much more sellable to a free agent that you want to be able to attract here to take your team over the top than we've had in a long time. Like, when's the last time we've had, I think, this promising of a roster that you could sell with cap space, like clean cap sheet? I don't remember a time, man.
Yeah, 100%. And RB says, think like Weaver. Why would I keep drafting guards if my guards are dominating? I'm going to build out my wings and big man. Obviously, this team needs to get bigger. Obviously, if you're drafting solely off of fit and in a bubble and selecting who the best player is at the position that you want to get better at and drafting like this is football, then I understand that argument. But this ain't football. There's 5 guys on the court at each time for each team. You take the best player that's available in this draft. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're not getting Victor Wembanyama, Scoot Henderson's the biggest game changer in this draft. The things that he can do, even at 6'2", his athleticism, his burst, his point guard ability. This is Derrick Rose in a 6'2" package, man. I'm telling you what, like you don't just pass on someone because of what you've drafted in the past. You take the best player available, and you figure that out later. I'm sorry, that's just how it works.
Look, man, look. I know money train James. He's a supporter. He supports everything that we do. I can get it, man. He's looking a little frustrated right now over Killian Hayes, though. Is there anything you can do to help him, Sean? Talk him off the Killian Hayes ledge, man. He's ready to be done.
It's one game.
Come on, James.
Like does this guy need to like have 2 more months of high quality basketball to prove to you guys like what his growth has been and his evolution and where he's at and
He
in
said,
his
"I'm just
growth?
mad, y'all."
Is there like, do we forget about the fact that, this guy literally back on the 13th, dropped 17, on the 11th dropped 18, on the 8th dropped 26. Like those games just no longer matter just because one game he didn't shoot well. Like it's not even like he wasn't taking the initiative. It's not even like he wasn't being aggressive. Like it's one of 82. Like you have to understand that guys are going to have rough shooting nights. The fact that this guy's coming out and he's one of our most consistent shooters on the team, the fact that he's one of our better scorers on the team, the fact that he can go out and get a bucket if need be. Like this is a guy that's playing at a very high efficient level and is one of the better players on this team. Like, yeah, he had a rough one. That happens. But you know what? There's still real progress and there's still real, honest to goodness potential in the idea of a 3-guard lineup with Jaden Ivey, Killian Hayes, and Cade Cunningham. There'd be high potential for a 4-guard lineup if Scoot Henderson came in. I'm just saying, like that, like those are the types of things you could start playing with. And Killian's gonna have a role on this team. I'm just telling you.
I'm glad you said that because what we're seeing out of Killian is that at the very least he's going to be a very, very, very productive backup guard because he could play against starters and he could play against the bench. He just can. But what I'm finding is that when he plays heavy starter minutes, the physicality of the game can change the way that Killian Hayes plays, and it looks like teams are doing it on purpose. They're just getting more and more physical with him on both ends of the court. Whoever he's defending is playing physical with him. And when he's on offense, I started to notice those guys are trying to play more physical with Killian Hayes as well. And the reason why they can do that is because whose usage goes up when Cade Cunningham is out? Killian Hayes. So they know game plan. Hey, trap him the way we trap Cade. But Cade's 6'7", 6'8", and superstar qualities, though. You know what I'm saying? That's just way, way different. And Killian, if he's not used to that, he's gonna look bad. And the teams that play those types of defense, that trap, I'm running up on you and everything. You know what I'm saying? It's like what did he say?
There's just
you know what I'm saying?
we found Sada's burner.
That's funny to me. It's like that's hilarious. But yeah, like he has to learn this. I'm not gonna like say that these things didn't happen. Killian, this is one area in his game where he has to get better. He has to get better playing against guys that play as physical as he tries to play. When Killian is in his bag, when those guys come back at him, like like the Bulls guards, their guards are like that, and Brunson is like that. Those guys get in Killian's way.
Yeah, and this chat's running through some BS right now, so I do want to clarify. Like people are running away with the idea of, oh well, if we get Scoot, then now like you're saying we're gonna have all these guards that we're gonna keep forever. Like, no, you morons. Like they're gonna figure out whichever players fit best for the long term trajectory of the franchise, and you figure it out from there. None of these players on this roster right now are forever. Really, the only guys that I would say, have long term. Longevity that they can genuinely say they're safe in this franchise are Cade, Isaiah Stewart, maybe Jalen Duren. But that's about it. If you really think about it, if he was Jalen Brunson in year 6, I mean, that'd be a godsend because Jalen Brunson's great. But in all seriousness,
wasn't that Chauncey Billups?
Year 6? Right. But the thing is that again, you take the best player available and you figure the rest out later. And when you have a plethora of talent like that, guess what that gives you? Options. Guess what that gives you? The opportunity to go to other teams and say, hey, what can we get in return? How can we bolster this roster, take those assets and build around the players that we want to build around? Like that's what you do. That's what this season's about. That's what last year was about. That's what this whole rebuild's about. And
Yep.
listen, are we saying Killian Hayes is a superstar? Absolutely not. Are we saying he's an all-star? No. What we're saying is Killian Hayes is showing that he can be a really valuable part of this franchise, even if he's a backup point guard. Because what we've seen throughout the history of this league, even Shaq said himself in an interview, I'll keep bringing up this point over and over and over again. Stars get you to the playoffs, role players win you championships. And especially in the city of Detroit, when we've seen teams like the Going to Work Pistons, teams like the Bad Boy Pistons, we're going to gush over role players here because we're built different in Detroit. We don't fall in love with the glitz and the glam and just all the stars. We're going to talk about the role players too.
I like that, man. That was a nice soliloquy. I was just sitting over here just listening, and I was like, "Oh wait, I'm on this live stream too." I was like, "Dang, that's nice." Like he just, yeah, you put it nicely, man. It really you did. And with Killian, I saw some people saying, "Oh, he can handle the pressure." It's not about pressure. With basketball, sometimes it's about forcing you, and all of us have played ball at some point in time. It's about forcing you into lower percentage chances and opportunities.
Mhm.
And when you can mix in a level of physicality that, the refs just, hey, they're letting these guys kind of play this year, man. They're really letting a certain level of physicality, not letting people just go all out bad boys, but a certain level of physicality, like, okay, I'm able to bump you a little bit. You come into the lane, I'm able to kind of bump you a little bit. Those things are starting to let back in. I love it. Those things are starting to let back into the game. And Killian has to figure out how to play through that. He's never like what league did he play in that? What league did he play that way in? What league was that the defense that he had to learn to play through? I believe that the most physical defense Killian Hayes played in his whole professional career before being drafted was when he was being trained by Will Bynum. That's what I
Yep.
think. I think that's when they were like, bro, because I remember Will Bynum. I'm gonna go back and get those quotes. He gave some quotes during that time about him, and I think that's what it was about, just getting him stronger, getting him ready for the league, and what that was gonna be. So yeah, look, he has the skill, he has the mindset, he has a skill, he has the talent. I mean, he has to get the mindset. That's what he has to do now. He has to understand you're 6'5", you got some weight, you got some heft to you, you can get around players. And I think that as his mid-range gets better, that's going to improve his confidence. We see Jaden Ivey getting into that mid-range a little bit today. That actually is where he got a little bit of his bread and butter today. I think if Killian can start to put in that same work, awesome. In this regard, don't be a Drummond in that regard. Go out there and put the work in. Ivy did what Drummond didn't do. You know what I'm saying, Sean? Like, this is one thing y'all was trying to get me to see is like, hey, look, yeah, he didn't have the right base, and that did affect him. But Ivy went and said, no, I'm trying to get this mid-range, man. I'm talking to Alec Burks, and I'm working on it with a guy who's proficient at it. Not just, I'm over here by myself just shooting. I got this. Like, no, he's like, I'm going to go with somebody who knows what they are doing. And I'm hoping that Hayes, as it relates to expanding his game, can learn from Burks as it relates to getting into the free throw, getting into the paint, getting some free throws, because that will help his game. He ain't getting no free throws, man. What if he could depend on 3 or 4 free throws a game?
Right.
It's it's there for him, but the physical parts of the game he has to get right. He just has to.
He has to keep getting Americanized. It's just the way it is. But Floyd, I unless you can think of anything else, I think we scratched about everything, man.
Just say something nice about Duren for 30 seconds.
Man, Jalen Duren, that boy, Hemi Neutron, boy genius. Holy cow. Like, just Hemi Turner. I mean, Jalen Duren, just seeing him in the lineup. Oh, Lordy. We're just a different team with him on the court. Like, just, it's a different equation. You know what I mean? Like, they're like when he was out of the lineup as well, it was like, all right, that's chalk. Because it's like, what do you do when it's just Nerlens Noel going up against Joel Embiid when he hasn't played basketball in multiple weeks? Like that's like that was the situation we're in, where it's like bloody hell. You know what I mean? Like that's where like Jalen Duren, like his physicality, his presence, his rebounding, everything that he brings. Like, we saw once he went out of the game even tonight, like, in Paris, like it was a whole different dynamic. So, I just say get this guy healthy, get him back to a point where he can keep playing, 25, 30 minutes a game. Let's see what he can do, man, because he's special. He is just special.
Yeah.
But
hey, I do think this is the time to shut it on down. Sean, you gonna take us out, man?
absolutely, man. Kool-Aid, it was good to be here with you as always, my friend. And it's
Sure,
good
bro.
to be here with each and every one of you each and every week here on Woodward Pistons Table Talk, where we talk all things that are going on in the Pistons world, whether it's the good, the bad, the ugly. We are here to break it all down for you. If you like this, be sure you like this video. Be sure you subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Be sure you rate the podcast 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and on all the services you can find us on. And make sure you follow us on social media as well. My guy at Detroit Kool-Aid and myself at Sean Half Court. But with that, folks,
Dope.
Be sure you stay tuned because the content's only going to keep coming with the trade deadline coming up, with the draft lottery coming up. We are going to be ramping it up and up and up more and more and more. We are going to be doing a whole lot. Expect a lot of great content coming down the pipeline.
A lot of fun things, and
Yes,
events
sir.
are on the way. So definitely, and we're gonna be having some giveaways as well for our chat, man. That's where we want to start it. So if you're in the chats, we're definitely gonna be having some things for you guys coming up here very, very soon. But thank you guys for supporting, for rocking out. Definitely hit the like button, the subscribe, as Sean said, and all that. And definitely, man, support the content that Sean is making. Puts in a lot of work. I like the way he runs his channel, and I like the way that his team is doing things over there.
Appreciate
Definitely,
you,
man.
Brody.
From half court, I'm for real, man. I'm for real. It's been a lot of growth for you, and I think that it's dope to be able to at least call that out, man. Recognize it, man. The squad is doing good, and I want to make sure that Jeff, the Morning Woodward show, and everything that's happened for him over the last year, and everything that's happened for you in the Pistons coverage game, is awesome, bro. And it's only gonna get better from here.
Hey, only big things in store for you and I this year, my friend. We're gonna take things to the next level for us, man. It's gonna be great. But
Let's go.
with that, folks, thank y'all so much for being here. We will catch you guys next time on Woodward Pistons Table Talk. Be sure you subscribe.
Hey, Tute Shans. How many twos is that? Two.